John Miglosh for the WDMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. And a note on that. People have asked me, what is that International Society for Strategic Marketing? I'll invite you to go to issm.org/WP because we're revamping the website and you can see it. You can poke around there in WordPress, in the WordPress subdirectory. Or just write me. That'd be fine too. So I see we have some watchers here. That's exciting. What I want to start off about, because I got some emails in the past couple weeks and saying, you could be talking about direct response and getting a response, or you could be talking about direct response marketing, or you could talk about database marketing. And yes, you can. You can talk about all those things, and you can pick your own term and make one up. And if you read Trout and Reese, Marketing Warfare, he kind of says you should pick your own category so you're the only one. Well, I kind of feel like the WDMA is the only one because the DMA changed the name, although I found out 2 weeks ago that it is not officially ratified yet. That would be interesting to change it back. And I kind of hope they do, although I have argued for 30 years that they didn't quite understand really good direct marketing. So anyway, I'm going to stick with direct marketing. And I'm going to stick with it because I think all we need to do is start to understand the power of the concept. We need to understand it like David Ogilvy understands it, as a secret weapon, as one of the most powerful marketing tools in existence. And with that, I'd like to transition over to my case study. Oops, and now I got to get the right window. Now, I hope I don't lose all my viewers here. I hope you've calmed down since the election. But at NMOA a year and a bit ago, we had a political consultant come in, and he said basically it's, Hillary has it all. Hillary can't lose. She only has to win one state. And if she wins that state, then, it's over. So given that that was the case, what's the other side of the story? Well, he said, the interesting thing is that Trump has spent less per delegate to the convention than anybody since we've been keeping track for 35 years. He spent less per delegate by far, a new category of less per delegate. And it turned out that if you calculate the Electoral College, he spent about a quarter of the official money spent. He spent about a quarter. We're not counting the PACs and all the other stuff, or maybe we are, but I'm still having my coffee, excuse me. So I was fascinated by that, and I dug into this a little bit. And what I found was that everybody predicted, you can see here, Clinton 355, Trump 182. It was going to be a rout, pretty much for sure, up until 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. on election night. It was still trending this way, and everybody expected it, and that's what everybody had said all along. Now, what was interesting is that President Obama had really, in some ways, pioneered big data. And he was given credit for a lot of analytics and really figuring out who was going to vote and how to target it and how to shape the whole thing. And Hillary, Mrs. Clinton, had improved on that and increased the funding and increased the data per voter. And they say she had something on every voter in America. And I have no doubt that's true. I read somewhere that there were 60 analysts. I guess I can come back to my to seeing me. You'll just see that slide. And so it puzzled me how this thing could have possibly happened. And 60 analysts and big data. And I'm a kind of a pioneer in big data. That's my real job, what I really do for a living. So I thought, what did he do? And I read article after article after article after article. And frankly, most of the articles, and if you read this article's on the WDMA front page, so WDMA.org, it's on the front page. It's quite a lengthy article. But it said that Trump was continually saying, we don't worry about big data. We don't worry about the polls. We're just going to keep on going. And there were very serious news articles saying he didn't even care about winning the election, but by winning the nomination, he now had access to the RNC database, which they had spent millions on, and they had something akin to the Clinton database apparently. And they said by getting access to that and by generating responses, they became his property. So he generated tens of millions of email addresses that presumably supported him at some level, and that he was going to start a right wing alt-right TV station or TV network or something. There was all sorts of speculation because he couldn't be serious about winning. So what's he doing? And I found an article in Bloomberg about how the Trump campaign had invited them in to see what they were doing, and even they said, we don't think it doesn't make any sense what he's doing, but it seems like he's selling hats. And there were other articles talking about how he was selling credit cards, where you could, as you use the credit card, the funds would fund would be the extra funds, the cash rebates or whatever, would go to his campaign, and he sold yard signs. I've been in politics since I was in third grade, trying to put up signs in people's yards, and no one ever paid for a sign, as far as I know. So, so this was totally new to me, that you would have to pay for the signs. And I heard the RNC was charging for signs, and then I realized you could also buy them online. So what was going on? What was going on? And I found out that besides Jared, uh, the very successful son-in-law, there was another guy, Brad Parscale, who had been in Silicon Valley for a while, and the dot-com bust happened, and he came back to San Antonio and started a business, and literally hung out in Barnes and Noble, and if people would pull out web building books for dummies or something, he would say, tap him on the shoulder and say, "Do you need any help with a website?" And he just went door to door in industrial parks, and he built up a business in San Antonio, and through the networking, uh, got asked to bid on the Trump Vineyard, Trump International, the International Realty Company, and he bid like $10,000, and probably the next the next bid was probably 100,000 or more. A website can cost whatever you've got. It depends on how much you've got to spend, and but he said, I can do that for 10,000. So he built him that, and before Trump announced his campaign, he built a little, you know, Donald Trump for president website, and charged him $1,500. So he was just a hardworking guy, uh, and he said, I don't know that much about politics really, but it seems a lot like selling other stuff. He did one for the vineyard. He said it's like selling wine. It's like selling anything. And what he meant by that, and this is really important, so focus here for a second. Oh man, a whole bunch more watchers. Focus for a second here. The WDMA, I love print, and we're going to have a bunch of articles. There's some really interesting neuroscience around touch, and so I'm going to be heading in that direction a little bit, only because everyone's shouting digital, and they don't realize the power they're missing. That their marketing can be multiples more effective. And what we mean by that, watch the David Ogilvy video. We mean in a dollars and cents way. Okay? But I am not opposed to Facebook. I just put an ad out there for WDMA, and we actually got some response. So, hey, I'm in the digital business. Heaven help us. And I do a lot of email. Pardon me for sending out so many last night while I was watching the basketball game. But we're about direct marketing. We're media agnostic. We don't care if it's TV or your sales force or your digital or a catalog. It doesn't matter. You still have to know what the costs are. You still have to know what you're paying for a customer. You have to know what the chances are that that customer is going to stay with you. These foundational principles are what direct marketing is about, and that's what we're going to do in the WDMA. We're going to always be talking about how do we figure out what's going on? How do we prove what's going on? And we'll get into that a little bit later in the talk. Okay, so so what so what was Brad doing? Well, before I say any more about Brad, I want to say I took the time after I wrote the article and researched, and you can see the whole thing is footnoted, so you can see where I got all the stuff. I sent it to him. I called his office and I said to the secretary who answered, the receptionist, I said, very nice person, the people are lovely in San Antonio. I said, do you ever hear the word direct marketing? Did you ever hear that around the office? She said, oh yeah, direct marketing is like it's our whole company is about direct marketing. Hey, all right, this is my kind of place. And I said, well, I'm the president of the WDMA, and I'd like to get in touch with Brad. And so they gave me his email, and I sent the article off, and I said, you don't know me from Adam, but could you read this? See if it makes any sense. See if I'm right, because I just, what I figured out was no one gets what you did, and I might be really off. So he wrote me back, and he said, you're right. No one got what we did. No one got what we did. So you heard it here first. I want you to go and read that article. It's radical. And it's not radical because one party or the other. That doesn't make any difference. I was impressed with Barack Obama's use of social media in the last two elections. But this thing blew it out of the water. Why? Because Brad said from the get-go, we had very little money. We sold ads partly for that reason, but also it was all about split testing. It was all about measurement and what is going on. And when we saw hats selling in places no one expected, like Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, they had, I don't know if it was their first rally, but they had a rally in Wisconsin in the summer, and no one was going to Wisconsin. And the Clinton campaign, Chelsea came once to Madison, but they didn't come at all. And, that one was all about modeling. In fact, there's a story I came across where there were some union campaigners out in Iowa, and they were going door to door like they had done in previous elections, and they weren't catching it. They were saying, no, there isn't the sentiment. This has shifted significantly. We'd be better off going to Michigan. So they got up and got in their buses. Apparently there were hundreds of them or something. They got in the buses and they headed for Michigan, and the campaign headquarters, Clinton headquarters, said, no, Michigan is set. Go back to Iowa. Okay, so they did. But you see now whether it was data or analytics or hubris, it's hard to say. But Hillary didn't come to Wisconsin. They thought that was a lock. And Trump came to Michigan, I think, at 1 a.m. on Election Day or something. No one had ever campaigned. He did 7 states on the day before elections, and it spilled over. But, it was a handful of votes. And, how did he know? And Brad said, yeah, that's what we were doing. We were allocating resources based on hat sales, yard signs that we were selling. And by the time they finished, and again, this is in the article, by the time they finished, they had done 100,000 Facebook ad versions. How many have you done? Right? Okay. I'm not saying you need to do 100,000. I'm saying the next time I advertise on Facebook, I'll take that first ad. I know how it did. Now that was my control. Now I've got to have an A/B split. And Facebook does that for you. How cool is that? They built it right in. The guys selling on digital, they're doing direct marketing. They may not know the words for it, but they're doing it. Now, is there other things they can do? I'm sure there is. And that's what we'll get into. But I want you to understand that in one of the biggest sales pitches in the world, direct marketing was the main resource allocation component. Does that mean they didn't do TV? No. Does that mean they didn't do, billboards or whatever? I don't know what they did, to be honest. But I know that they did it in the areas where they were selling hats. How crazy is that? It's crazy. So if you understand direct marketing, watch the Ogilvy video, it gives you the intelligence to allocate your other resources. You don't have to test everything, but you have to test something well. And that's what we're going to talk about at the WDMA forever. If you don't like it, that's too bad. But it's going to be case studies. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And feel free to say something if you on the comment chat thing, because it makes me feel like someone's watching. So let's just talk a little bit about direct marketing, okay? Because I got this slideshow all done, and I've got it animated, and then I can take a cup of coffee and sip it while you're watching this thing. Okay, so it's the fundamentals. We're going to talk about the fundamentals because maybe you know direct marketing, but maybe your employees don't. I want you to be involved with the WDMA to find out what marketing ideas are working. My daughter sent me an article just yesterday, and she said A/B testing is everywhere. She said she sent me this article about how non-governmental organizations are doing split testing. Like there's all kinds of stories about how Tom's Shoes put shoemakers out of business in third world countries. They meant well. They meant well. And are microloans the best solution for women in impoverished areas, or is it better since they don't, is it better to teach them the job skills to have a job? Both are probably important, right? I don't know the answer. I'm just saying that they're using split testing. They're applying the same techniques that we're applying. They're applying it in a whole other area. So we're going to keep an eye out for those kinds of stories. I think you'll make more money if you understand direct marketing because over and over and over, you want to know my history, it's making more money for people. I don't work with people that don't want to make more money. And you get full credit for your contribution. And I know I just did a short video on how in the general ad agency nobody wanted to listen to me because they didn't want in case it failed. They didn't want anybody to know. Okay, well, in sports, the winners want a finish line. The winners want to keep score. It's everybody else who doesn't. So if you're a winner, then you want to get direct marketing principles into your company. That's just here. So my DM history, my direct marketing history is, let's see, I started doing direct mail in 1978, consulting in 81. Amazing that I got a job as a consultant. But I knew something about computers and something about telemarketing and stuff, so it made sense. I've mailed personally or been in charge of tens of millions of pieces, and clients of mine have mailed billions of pieces. And if you wonder why, just ask me sometime. I started actually in layout and design for cataloging, and then I wrote copy, and then ended up picking lists and did database analytics. Excuse me. What I found was that there were a lot of really creative people in advertising, but there weren't very many creative, and in design and copy, but there weren't very many creative people in big data, if you will, or analytics. And I think that's probably still the case to some extent. So let's talk and this is going to go fast because I've been doing this over and over and over, but the direct marketing definition, and this is the long-term one that was in the Direct Marketing magazine for decades, and what I came to learn. An interactive system of marketing that uses one or more advertising media to affect a measurable response and or transaction at any location. Okay, so that's a working definition. And the first question I ask is, well, what's an interactive system? Right? I mean, okay, think about it. Yes, but if you go door to door and you knock, and if someone answers, you start your pitch, and they talk back, and you sell something, is that an interactive system? Probably. At any location, I don't see how location is all that relevant, although I know that this was written as a contrast to retail. Okay. Response. The tricky part today is, what is a response? Is it a click through? Is it a view? Is it registering your email? I have lots of catalog friends that say they don't count a customer until they not only place an order, but not the free special. I bought something from Orvis, the nymphs for $10 and got a $10 coupon and got a hat too. So I have an Orvis hat and I have these fly fishing nymphs baits lures. And am I a customer of Orvis? I wish I were, but really not very much. So okay, so measurable, and this is the real stickler because when you watch the David Ogilvy video, what you'll see is that the is that he's thinking you need to measure, you need to split test, um, but now everybody measures. So if you're doing measurement, is that enough to make you a direct marketer? And I would say it's a good start. If you don't measure, you probably aren't going to test. But even testing, had a great talk with Russ at Namoa, and he said even testing. He said I work with younger people, and they think, okay, we'll test this, and they get a result. But unless you have a hypothesis about what the test means and what you'll learn when you get the results and whether the results are significant and all these things that go into it, unless you have some framework, you can't extrapolate. You can't apply it to the future unless you have more context than just a test. And he's absolutely dead right. And I thank him again for reminding me of this. And I hope he watches this. I hope he's here because he would be great to be involved again. But he's honorary at Namoa, so come to Namoa and you will probably get to meet Russ. Okay, so I just came up with 3 examples where the megacorp creates a big ad campaign to drive web traffic and sales double. Is that direct marketing? According to the definition, I would say yes. Big retailer targets a trading area by zip, does a newspaper flyer inside that area. People come and shop and sales go up. And is that direct marketing? I would say by that definition, yes. And even Sally Consumer plans a garage sale and puts an ad in the bulletin and attracts, or maybe you could say Craigslist, and attracts all these visitors. Sells 250. She keeps track. She measures. It's interactive. She says hello to everybody that comes and collects the money. See the problem with the definition? I'm not trying to pick on the definition. I'm just saying we need to think more clearly about it than just what the location is or whether it's what kind of system it is. We need to be focused on the core concept of testing. And again, watch the Ogilvy video. It's great. Okay, so what's the real measurement about? Okay, all advertising is meant to generate measurable effects. You don't even and I've mentioned this before, but I can remember when Apple had this ad with this auditorium filled with people, and it looked like the Monty Python movie Brazil, and this guy comes running down the center aisle with a sledgehammer, swinging the sledgehammer, and throws it into the big screen at the front, and then it says Apple at the end, which is about as out there as you get on an ad, but I still remember it. So it was meant to be memorable. I've never really bought an Apple product, but I remember it. And so even the far end of the spectrum, way over here, about memorable is an effect. Okay, so it gets in your brain, and that's what it was intended to do. So all advertising is meant to create an effect, and that is measurable. It says our ads increased his business 40%, and you know, GM hired me to come out and look at their database. Actually, EDS hired me, and they flew me over there. And after a lot of conversation, I said, "Why am I here?" And they said, "Well, we'd really like to know who would have bought a car if we wouldn't have given them the $5,000 back from their credit card." And I said, "Well, what answer would you like?" And they said, "Well, we thought you were a data guy." And I said, "Well, I am, but my guess is you didn't do holdout tests or, you know, if you want good data, they had 275 variables on every credit card holder. They had all their purchases from, how much at Walmart, how much United Airlines, all that, whatever you bought. And yet they couldn't really answer the one question because they hadn't set it up right. And this is the biggest problem with big data. is that they're not setting up the data, unlike the Trump campaign, who did things to give the data context and meaning. If you just suck in all the Twitter, all the, all the Twitter live Twitter feeds, it's not going to tell you much, and you can't trust what you get. And that's why, you know, the 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 big stories for big data are the same as they were 20 years ago. When Target started mailing people who had bought Pampers and said, "Oh, they must have a baby there somewhere." And we could do that in 1988 with the UCrop system, but it wasn't big data, and they haven't really gotten much further than that. It's just sort of sad. So you're better off learning direct marketing and getting involved with the WDMA. The key defining ingredient is testing. Direct marketing can tell you which half is wasted, like Wanamaker says. Which half is wasted? Direct marketing can tell you how big a difference this ad versus that ad makes. And that's what Brad said. I mean, Brad said that's what we were doing. But further, as Russ pointed out at the Namoa, this was over at the bar. It wasn't. It wasn't on camera, unfortunately. I'm gonna try and get Russ if he comes to the fall show to give us a chat on the real meaning of testing. But anyway, so Russ said it's not just testing, it's observation, hypothesis, experimentation, explanation theory. It's sophomore high school biology when you learned the scientific method. You need to keep those things in mind. You need to do more than just mail a pink or a blue insert. You need to think about what you're doing. And sample sets are not simple. I can tell you that. We build a full model, and then we take randoms from each segment rather than randoms across the whole thing, so that we're sure to get a proportionate number of good customers. You can goof up a sample set in an A/B split really easily. I can tell you that. So, why don't people test? They say it's expensive. They say try and change are much easier than test. And sometimes you don't need to test. Sometimes you should just fix it. I did work for Oakley through the Postal Service, and the 800 number was stuck in the body copy for their response device, and I said, "It's not here." And they said, "Yeah, it's here right there. Look, see." No, that's not there. Make it bigger. Okay, they did. So let's talk briefly about the WDMA. By joining the WDMA, you can connect with a group of fellow direct marketing professionals. There's some people, the board members and some of the mailers in Wisconsin that are so excited about what we're doing that we're really going to move it forward. We're working on a course on the fundamentals. We've rebuilt the catalog game, which was built with Catalog Age Magazine and Land's End, and it's gotten rave reviews in England and in the U.S. and at different universities. It's really a lot of fun. And so whether you're a veteran to the industry, in which case we'd like you to contribute yourself to this process, we really need members to participate, right? Not just learn, but you're going to learn, and you're going to learn by teaching, and we'll get you recruited for these live video things. I've got a way to get you even if you're not coming to visit me. And the WDMA can play a big part in your education, understanding, and development of your direct marketing. The benefits, we're going to do at least once a month. I'm going to do a live private webinar, and I'm trying to get a few people on board to to help out with that. We already have a private Facebook group, which I've invited you to join if you've sent in your if you've registered and paid. We're having monthly meetups around the state for networking and information exchange. We're having a meetup in May. April's tough because my daughter's getting married, so I'm not sure. I'll probably do something. But with Easter and with the wedding, it's been a real challenge. So, but we're having one in May, the 11th, up in Green Bay, where we're gonna actually have a seminar, and the other speaker is going to talk about about segmentation and how that pays off, and I think it's going to be really great. So again, the information for that is on the WDMA.org site. Um, and we're going to offer members half price savings, so you get some benefit there, especially if you want your employees to get some of the concepts and the fundamentals. Um, you can subscribe to WDMA. There's a free subscription option, and that will, we'll try to keep you on the on the on the email list. And we are actually doing a mailing for the May seminar. Individual memberships are $195 monthly. You can do a monthly, so it won't break the bank. There is a scholars member. We have a corporate where you can get up to 10 employees, and then there's a way to have more, and it has a monthly fee also. And if you're far away from Wisconsin, so we'll probably never come visit you, just write me, and I have something that we can probably apply to you, because we do want participation, not just in Wisconsin, but you're not going to get the full benefit if you're in California or New York City. So that's the formal part. I did it in 31 minutes, which is pretty good. And John Miglosh for the WDMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing.